Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, February 27th, and we've got a great show today. I have a special guest, Amanda Shea, who's going to be joining me. And the topic of conversation today is going to be victimless crime lawsuits that the Southern District of New York and New York City are suddenly becoming famous for doing, and their unaccountability to anybody that I'm aware of where all of these millions of dollars are going that they are stealing. So, we're gonna the thing that really kind of brought this all to a head with me and thinking about all of this. I've talked about it before on the podcast about the We Build the Wall Fund and what the Southern District of New York did. And my guest, Amanda Shea, is actually the wife of Tim Shea, who was sentenced to 5 years in prison for paying for the security teams to be on the border and protect the people down there building the wall, and then billing We Build the Wall and being reimbursed himself directly. And the Southern District of New York earmarked that and decided to say, no, this is you stealing money from the donors and pocketing it and enriching yourself. So that's going to be one of the topics. Let me just text Amanda and see when she's going to pop on. Because I want her to be in on this initial conversation, because we talked over the weekend. She was supposed to be my special guest last week and had a personal situation come up, so she wasn't able to join us. But, okay, here she is. The amazing Amanda Shea.
Hello, good to be here.
Hi, you look beautiful.
Oh, you're too nice. Thank you.
How you doing?
Very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
I was just kind of giving the viewers a little idea of what we're going to be talking about today, about victimless crime lawsuits that Southern District of New York State in general, and the Democrats seem to be, salivating after and going after this sort of thing. So, the Trump verdict recently of $355 million for a victimless crime.
Mm-hmm.
Banks testified, did they not, that they were paid back?
Yes.
Very happy with doing business with Mr. Trump. And, what the public may fail to understand is when a financial institution gets a loan application from somebody, those people can write whatever they want on their application or can say, my house is worth $4 million. But that financial institution is going to do their own due diligence. They're going to get an appraisal. They're going to check into your net worth. They're going to look into a lot of things before they make that final decision if they're going to lend you money, right?
Correct.
So when you have the banks that Southern District of New York is saying that, or that New York is saying that Trump defrauded these people, coming and testifying and saying, no, it's all paid back. He was a great customer. We want him again.
Mm-hmm.
What does that really look like to the public, Amanda?
Well, it looks like that everybody probably feels like a criminal at that point, because everyone went through the same process for the most part. It's the general process, like you just stated. So everyone is like, well, wait. Then they're going to start to freak out inside of like, are they going to come after me? Are they going to attack me for my beliefs or how I voted or who I support? And then on these back channels, which is what they love to do. All of Biden's weaponized institutions will do this. They'll look for little ways that they can like sneak in, because everyone does the same things financially with getting loans or how you spend your money and whatever. And there's always some kind of a loophole that the government will exploit every single time.
Right. And so that's leaving a lot of people, scratching their head, what's going to happen to me? Of course, we've seen and heard about a lot of businesses now planning to pack up and move out of New York. Remington, I believe, the gun maker is moving to Georgia, I believe. I read, so they're actually hurting themselves, I think, by doing this sort of thing. But what I wanted to tie this all into, meaning a victimless crime, what is the $355 million judgment against Trump? What is it going to pay back?
Well,
You
I can tell you just from my own experience, it goes to pay back all all the legal action that the state has paid for to take against him just to weaponize him. And then obviously there's a surplus beyond that that just gets sucked into the whole system. And just like, I mean, if you just on a small scale, if you just look at what your taxes actually pay for, we're paying all this money in taxes, and it goes to pay for meaningless, endless wars in Ukraine, and illegal alien border crossings, obviously a huge one, and then on the large scale, and then a bunch of other you know things that you don't necessarily want or support, but it just goes into feed into the whole government system and government employees and government payouts, and so it truly benefits them in a twofold sense, because they get the making the individual or organization or group look like criminals, and even prosecuting them, they get that victory, and then they get all the financial aspect of it too.
Right. And with the big hole that New York has dug itself into by being a sanctuary state,
Hmm.
obviously they are, clamoring and needing money bad in that city. But
Hmm.
let's go back a few years to when the Southern District of New York decided to go after We Build the Wall.
Hmm.
So We Build the Wall, you and Brian Kobash started a GoFundMe thinking,
Hmm.
oh, this will be fun to do, not really thinking that Americans were going to jump on board and support you 100%, right?
It was more to get the message out that this needs to be done, and it's the power of the people that can do it, because the government's not going to do it, or they're not going to do it as cost effective as private citizens can do it. And so it's to kind of just show people that we can do things as private citizens that the government can't do, because there's not all the government red tape. But at the end of the day, the government wants to prove themselves as the dictators of all things.
Right. So you set up a 501c3,
C4.
and GoFundMe was a little hesitant to release the money because it wasn't like the full amount of your outrageous goal, right?
Well, but it started as a 501c4, and it remained a C4, and then our original goal that we had stated in the mission for through the GoFundMe was that we were giving all the money to the government to build the wall. We quickly learned that doing that wasn't going to be a possibility, because just like we stated a few minutes ago, all that money just gets sucked into a system, and used for millions of different pet projects and other expenses that isn't the principle of what the money was raised for. And so then we decided to that's when we made it the C4 at that point, and as a charitable organization. So and then that was the part that GoFundMe had a problem with. Was okay, well, people have already donated X amount of money. We need to make sure that they know where their money is going, and so we had to do a whole separate campaign to show, yeah, we're not going to give it to the government. Here's why. We're actually going to take your money and put it directly to the cause. Sans, there's obviously construction costs and administration costs and all those things. And so once we got through that process of getting that approved, where people had to opt in, to say anyone who donated had to opt into the cause, like, hey, you can either get a refund or you can have your money be passed on in this way that goes to the purpose of what you want to what you donate for, which was a border wall. So that's what we did. The majority of people opted in, and then we moved forward from there, and raised more money, and then started building wall.
Yes. And what the public needs to know is We Build the Wall built 2 sections of wall
Hmm.
and had 2 or 3 more contracts ready to start building more wall when the
Hmm.
Southern District of New York stuck their big fat noses in things and decided we got to shut these people down.
Correct. And it's hard to say whether, they were upset that, I mean, maybe it was probably more than one thing, that they were upset that we weren't just going to donate all the money to the government, and that instead we were going to actually, as private citizens, build a wall. And I can tell you, in the end, what it came down to, and what the judge said at sentencing, was, "How dare you do what the government's supposed to do?" So that pretty much said everything that needs to be said. I mean, without even maybe even intending to make it so obvious, it's they were mad that, hey, this is don't like stay in your lane. You do what you're supposed to do as a private citizen, and follow what we tell you to do, and don't try to do what we try to do because we reign supreme.
Right. Right. And there was blood, sweat, and tears put into
Mm-hmm.
that first wall down there at Sunland Park, New Mexico, which is right on the border with Texas, right there by El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite an incline going up the side of a mountain. You got Tommy Fisher from Fisher Industries down here in Casa Grande, Arizona, involved because he had these border wall panels already figured out, the special bulldozer machinery that he had that would lift them up and put them into place. And you guys came up with a plan. And it was totally amazing. I was there and I was watching this all happen and these panels going up. And I could not even believe how quickly things were happening and what you guys had accomplished and pulled together. It was truly amazing, Amanda, to think that,
Mm-hmm.
you and Brian started out with a small thought of, oh, let's put this out there and get money for the government to build a wall. And then you ended up building that wall
Correct.
up the side of a mountain that the Army Corps of Engineers said wasn't possible.
Right.
And it's still standing. And there is a paved road next to it that the Border Patrol was so thrilled about because it would take them so long to go around and up and through these bumpy roads to get up to the top of the
Mm-hmm.
mountain where a lot of these illegals and drug runners were coming over. And the lighting, the camera capability,
Yeah.
it was really the wall of the future, wasn't it?
Yeah, it paved a way, I mean, literally and figuratively, of how the wall should function, for security and also to help assist the, border patrol and everything, so.
Right. My dog is hearing a delivery truck.
Mhm.
So we went down there, we and I was on the board of advisors as an angel mom, so I wasn't involved in the construction part of it all, but was totally amazed at what you guys had done. And then Tommy Fisher went down along the Rio Grande and did some border wall there along the Rio Grande. And didn't you guys have some contracts going that were going to be coming up here in Arizona?
Yeah, there was just land negotiation happening, so we always built on private land. This wasn't, like, government-owned land, so that's important to note, is that you had to negotiate with the owners of land. First, you have to identify who those owners are, and then you have to negotiate to see, do you want a wall on your land? Because a lot of them, and a lot of the people that they talked to did want that because it would help protect their property and their cattle and their ranches. A lot of it was ranch property, and so, that's, what that is a long process that we had to go through the first round, with both walls, and then we were continuing that on, in the second round, to continue on. What we wanted to do was actually take, so the first wall we built in Sunland Park, like you said, it went up the side of that mountain, and then it needed to go over, and then it would eventually connect to the other existing wall that just stopped and butted up against the other side of the mountain because, again, the same issue that they didn't want to build up the side of that mountain, but so there was this big gap, and that's where all that trafficking was pouring in through. So that was called, that area is called Anapra, and that's where we were trying to, basically connect the existing standing wall that the government had already built several years prior, and then the wall that we had built, and then it would have closed off that entire section that was, subject to so much, drug trafficking, human trafficking, obviously just like regular border crossing, and a lot of cartel violence.
And what a lot of people don't understand too is right there in Sunland Park, their stated population, because of the amount of post office boxes and things that they have, is a lot larger than the actual population. Because
Mhm.
what these Mexicans do is they come across the border and they apply for food stamps and welfare and all kinds of stuff, get a PO box, and the checks and their cards and stuff are sent to those PO box, but they're actually Mexican citizens and live in Mexico. They don't even live in Sunland Park.
Right.
And so that was interesting information. We found out a lot of what was going on down in that area when we were there present and kind of, in the community
Yeah.
and talking to some of the local people. So not only does building a wall help protect a community, but it opens up a stream of information that we're able to bring out to the public
Mhm.
and talk about, hey, this is what's really happening in Sunland Park. We kind of
Mhm.
uncovered some corrupt city officials. I mean, there was a lot going on down there, wasn't there?
Yeah, and that was another huge part of our mission. It wasn't just the physical act of building the wall, but it was to educate the public, which, as you know, because you were part of a lot of the events that we put on, was to is to take a lot of the information that we had learned and gathered, and experts in their fields, in regards to everything to do with the border, between, law enforcement, border patrol, and everybody, and speak on those issues from not just people in the area, but I mean a lot of people that are the strongest in the field across the country. And so, it was to get the message out that, hey, this is actually really happening. We were down there, boots on the ground, like from the wall in the heat of the summer months and the
Yeah.
hottest hot times, as you guys in Arizona definitely understand. And just excuse me 1 minute. And and educating the public on what's truly going on, not just the local public, but it was more on a national basis of letting people know that this is what's happening, showing them what's happening, showing them the progress of what we're making and why we're doing that and how many drug paths that we're cutting off and why it's so important. And that was, obviously in 2019, and now we're in 2024, and you can just see what a disaster it is. I mean, everything's been stopped. They've put people in prison. They've taken all the money, and now they have, and they've opened up the border. I mean, they just did a complete 180 reversal of all those efforts, and it's a huge slap in the face, not to just the organization, the people that suffered the greatest price of that, but to the country. I mean, as you know, there's sanctuary cities across the state, including the state where I live, and my mayor in Denver has declared a state of emergency because they're shipping a lot of those illegal aliens from specifically New Mexico area over into to Denver, and now our streets are filled with homelessness, and I mean, and that's just obviously one city out of multiple cities across the nation that are suffering the exact same situation.
Right. And it was kind of a slap in the face too to the donors,
Yeah, I
um,
big time.
to the project, because the very thing that the Southern District of New York accused We Build the Wall of doing was defrauding these donors uh,
Hmm.
into saying that these people thought that it was all the money was going to the wall, when in fact I was involved in that whole campaign that we had to get a hold of all the donors. I was helping out. We were texting them, emailing and making phone calls and
Hmm.
having them answer us, yes, I want our money to stay in there.
Yes.
So we had followed things to the T. Everything was on the up and up. But again, the government looking around and probably saw a bunch of the news stories coming out, saw that Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle were down there. We had a lot of politicians and dignitaries down there that were bringing awareness to what We Build the Wall was actually doing.
Hmm.
And I'm sure it pissed a lot of people off. And
Hmm.
so, of course, they're going to have to put the brakes on it and bring it to a stop. But the thing that really irritated me and irked me was when I was hearing about Brian Colvage, how they came to his house and to your house, busted down the doors, came in with guns, frightened your children to death. Your children are still dealing with that aftermath
Hmm.
because, at that age, and that was in 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, August of 2020.
Yeah, so 4 years ago, that sort of thing affects a child for many, many years, and it may pop up later in life, you know, something triggers that, but to see how they treated Brian Colvage, a triple amputee who had
Hmm.
served our country and lost, 2 legs and an arm,
Hmm.
um, and drag him out his front door, didn't even give him the dignity of being pushed out in a wheelchair.
They didn't
Um,
even come with a compliant car to transport him. It wasn't so they
right.
didn't let him bring his limbs. They didn't let him bring his chair, nothing. And of course, it was a pre-dawn raid, and they drug him all the way out in front of his little children and his wife, of course. And it was a real shock and awe approach, which we see a lot of, and we've seen a lot of that more recently. I mean, even since then with a lot of other conservative causes, and they do that on purpose. It literally just scare the daylights out of you, put the fear of God in you so that you just like, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to say anything, I don't want to look the wrong way, I just want to look down, do my thing, stay my lane, and not try to speak out against anything that you feel is an injustice or that you disagree with what's going on in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and fast forward to January 6th. I mean, they know
Mhm.
what they're doing.
Yes.
They know how to frighten people and scare
Mhm.
people. And so they do that. Then you fast forward to the trials, and they're bringing trumped up charges against these men
Mhm.
and false things, not allowing them to be able to bring the exact evidence to the courtroom that would exonerate them and show exactly what went on. Now, in your husband's case, I mean, I saw Tim once.
Mhm.
The whole time that I was involved with We Build the Wall, he never was down at the projects. You know, he was kind of a behind the scenes kind of a guy taking care of security to protect the people that were down there, not only building the wall, but at the events, and also anybody, politicians and stuff that would go down there to visit and see what was going on. Tim was assuring everybody and protecting people, having a security team in place.
Mhm.
And he paid them direct, and then We Build the Wall to be reimbursed himself. And that's where Southern District of New York said, you were taking money for doing nothing, right?
Right. Yeah, that's I mean, that's it. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what they're, accusing him of, is that with you shouldn't have been contracting out a security to do this. I mean, you have to have security in that zone. There's no way around it, especially when you have dignitaries coming in and other, and just the general public in themselves. And then during the construction, you got to protect all the machinery. I mean, it was a massive undertaking of a security system, just the physical security we had to have on the site, not just during events and not just during construction, but 24/7. Because even when at night when the machines were parked, they had to be protected too because they could get hijacked, they could get stolen, they could get damaged. I mean, so yeah, so there's a lot more to it than just, sending a couple guys over to, check tickets at the door, because that wasn't the case at all. And so, yeah, so he had his own business, that he contracted the security, he paid the security, and then they just said that he didn't have a right to do that.
So they just take it upon themselves to say you didn't have a right to do that. And of course, I know from our conversations, and we won't go into a lot of detail, but they refused to allow a lot of the evidence to come forth in his trial. And
Yeah.
they threatened some of the people that he wanted to come to his trial and testify, and said, we'll ruin your political career. We'll bring more
Mhm.
trumped up charges against you if you show up. They kind of threatened these people behind the scenes, did they not?
Yeah, there was some, threatening tactics involved, and just yeah, exactly like you said, and we don't have to go into great detail on all those different specifics, for obvious reason, but they definitely did that. And then also, I think it should be of note that out of the four defendants, obviously one was, pardoned, and then the other three, who were sentenced, two took plea deals. My husband did not take a plea deal. He chose to fight the charges because he very much stood his ground and wanted to, make sure that he didn't just say he did something when he didn't do it just to let it go away. So he fought, in federal court, on two different trials. And then when it came, and they were, no matter what, it's a skewed system anyway. The Southern District of New York has, I think it's like a 98, 97 or 98% conviction rate. And that's not because they're just so good at their job, at so good, or or they get of the worst people in there or anything like that. It's definitely a controlled environment, we'll say, of how that goes. And so when they want to convict you, they'll convict you, and there's a lot of different, ways in which they'll do that. And so in the end, even though my husband was listed as the fourth person on the list, so it goes from top to bottom of people that are charged with this crime. The first one being the most culpable, the last one just being on there just to turn on the other guys, maybe, give them information, whatever they want. My husband was the last one, and he was the one who fought it, but he ended up with significantly more prison time than anybody else because he chose to use his, constitutional right to fight the charges that he felt like were brought against him wrongfully.
And it's so sick the way that it works, but and what has really made me so mad since all of this was, number one, the way you were all treated,
Hmm.
and now you're a single mom,
Hmm.
basically because they've carted your husband away for 5 years for a crime that he didn't even commit. something made up in the Southern District of New York's mind, that, okay, this is illegal to pay somebody and be reimbursed. And they've taken this money, and what have they done with it? Because they've done exactly what they accuse We Build the Wall of. They've defrauded these donors out of their money, because I guarantee you they have not called every one of those donors and said, hey, we brought lawsuit against We Build the Wall and we got the money. And do you want your money back, or do you want us to put it in the New York City coffers? What would you like us to do? Guaranteed those phone calls never happen. So where is the accountability to the Southern District of New York of where the millions and millions and millions of dollars are that they stole from We Build the Wall?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, they just take it back all into their system, and they pay off. They pay the fees of everybody who who bought the trials in the court, who worked on the trials. Which, by the way, they had like a team of I don't know, 20 something prosecutors on it, which is an egregious amount, and so that was no small expense. So yeah, it just gets absorbed into the system, and then it's just gone.
And it's a victimless crime, just like the Trump deal is, because they could not get any donors, because they had the donor list. They could not get any donor to step forward and say, yes, these people defrauded me out of my money, except for one guy who donated $100, and they paid what, $6,000 to $8,000 to fly him to New York and put him in a hotel and feed him. And he was posting all kinds of stuff on his Facebook page, sightseeing and having a wonderful time in New York. And he went in and testified, yeah, I donated $100 and I wanted my money back.
He could have gotten it back.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was the only victim that they brought forward in the We Build the Wall lawsuit. And so this is why I wanted to talk about this, because what is the problem with New York and New York City and the state and the Southern District of New York filing these victimless crime lawsuits and succeeding in getting these people found guilty and sentenced to prison terms or given huge amount of fines like Trump was, and nobody's been harmed?
Yeah, I think it's just, if you look at the whole series of it, it all comes back to Trump. We were building Trump's wall, is what a lot of people said. That's not, that's not saying that that was his big ticket item. That was what he that was what he ran on, was to build the wall. That's what he's known for. And then all the January 6 people have been charged. I mean, granted, most of it's out of Washington, D.C., but same difference. And to make Trump and everybody who follows him, everybody who votes for him, look like anarchists. And just it's not just attacking Trump, it's anybody else that might align with him. And then they use every tool they can to weaponize it and literally imprison people for literally the way that they voted. And that's a banana republic at the end of the day.
Right. And it was amazing to see, like, remember that other organization that was being put together for building the wall at the same time we were?
Yes.
And they were claiming that they had a contract with DHS. Do you remember that organization?
I can't remember the name of it, but I do know.
And they never built an inch of wall.
Yeah.
Why didn't the Southern District of New York go after those people? Because they had hundreds of thousands of dollars donated to their cause. And those people ended up taking the money and spending it on themselves. We know this for a fact because we know these people involved. Remember, we saw them at CPAC?
Yes.
They were living high on the hog.
Oh, yeah.
And took this money and were spending it on first class round trip tickets to wherever they wanted to go, getting front row seat tickets at events, political events or concerts, sitting in the bar at the hotel at CPAC and surrounding themselves at these big tables with all these people, buying all the drinks for them and everything. That's how they spent the money that was donated to their Building a Wall fund.
Right. Which is crazy, because when we went to CPAC and any other events that were offshoots, I used my own funds, my own money to pay for that, and anybody else I wanted to come with me. So just as the experience, just because of what we do. And But that particular instance that you were speaking of, it was so aggravating because it was almost like they were flaunting it in our
Yeah.
face, and they were actually fundraising off of our name to almost look like they were a subsidiary of ours,
Yes.
and that in itself should be a crime.
Right.
So, but they weren't the first to do it. They didn't have the biggest names involved in it, and so I'm assuming that's partly why they got away with it. But there's probably, outside of just wall effort groups like that one, there's probably countless groups that are out there doing similar things, and their nefarious actions make the genuine ones who actually go out and do the job and say what they're going to do look horrible. Or they just know that they're going to be in the shadow and not have to pay the price, and we'll let the other people take the fall.
Right. It was
So
very infuriating watching them,
yeah.
and to think that they just got away with it, and they defrauded all of those donors big
Hmm.
time. And hopefully it was none of the donors that thought they were actually donating to the good We Build the Wall, who actually built Wall,
Right.
and then later find out that they're not. But you hear this so often of these organizations, these GoFundMes and these 501(c)(3)s that raise this kind of money and do nefarious things with it, and they're never ever ever brought to task and brought to a point where they have to explain where the money went. And I often go back to when they were talking about Biden, and he was raising money for a cancer fund. Um, did he ever donate that money to the cancer fund,
Well,
or did they
I
pocket that as another source of income for the Biden family?
who knows? I mean, if they did, it might have been pennies. It could have been maybe perhaps the same percentage that the Clintons donated to the Haiti fund. I
Right.
mean, to Haiti from their Haiti fund. And they have the Clinton campaign has or Clintons themselves have offices right next to the Southern District of New York, in New York. So they're within that district. Because the other thing too is, we didn't do business in the Southern District of New York. We barely even had any donors in the Southern District of New York, and they couldn't even get a single person in the Southern District of New York who had donated to our cause to be one of their victims that they had come speak. They brought out, as the one individual that you spoke of, and then they just brought out people not even associated with it at all, who just happened to know Brian and I from the way before the wall, that had no association or dealings or donation or anything, to just speak ill on his character, and on my husband's character as well. And that individual didn't have um, any relation with my husband at all to even be at his trial. So they were really pulling at straws there. But I I think that uh, it's aggravating that you have all these leftist. I mean, we've talked in the past, you and I have, about even like Black Lives Matter. They went out and, I mean, they were the number one GoFundMe. Ours was the second, and they took all that money and they paid like over $1 million to one of their brothers or a relative or someone to do personal security. They bought multiple mansions, and they bragged about it publicly. Even after they were called out on it, they bragged about it publicly. And I believe that they're still fundraising. I mean, somewhat dissolved, but I mean, no recourse there, because they're just on the right side of the aisle, meaning the left.
Correct. And there was a time when you would go to Black Lives Matter and it would take you right to Act Blue.
Hmm.
And so you knew it was a whole Democratic operative that was happening,
Hmm.
and they were probably just rewarding these people who ran it all and who were the spokespeople, rewarding them and letting them buy these homes. But, bottom line is, and especially for Black Lives Matter, and as passionate as they are when they're out speaking and screaming and yelling in the streets, to think that they wouldn't go after them, because that is complete fraud. Not one dime, and they've proven this. Candace Owens did a huge thing, and they've proven the fact that they haven't spent one dime on making Black lives better.
And I believe on that same documentary that she did about it, or reporting that she did on it, and other things that I'd read on it, that was it one of the victims, like, was it Trayvon Martin, like his parents or his mom is still looking for that money that they said that they were going to donate to him and his cause. And or maybe they had donated like a couple $100 or something like that, just some small amount of what they said they were going to donate, just to say that they donated something, but they had promised to donate a much larger amount. So there's the real victims that they fundraise off of, those names, and those the surviving relatives of those victims are still looking for money from what they raised off of.
And I find it so funny because this has been out there And I know mainstream media kind of keeps it on the down low,
Mhm.
but I can't believe that more liberals aren't mad about it, because had that been, a conservative movement and not a Democratic movement, had it been a conservative movement and the money was not spent to make Black lives better and to help with the communities, and that money put exactly where they were talking about, where it's so bad, the media and people in general would be so pissed off that conservatives didn't spend the money the way that it was supposed to be spent.
Right, and that's the thing is I think that maybe the media has done such a great job spinning the narrative so well to say, "Oh, and if you hear anything bad about this, just conservatives being crazy," and, that's obviously loose speak, but just, something to that regard, and, when the numbers are out there, but, they I don't know, I kind of wonder if they're not starting to wake up a little bit because the party's kind of imploding, but there is one key difference that I think, um, sets, the Democrats off from Republicans or conservatives is that, Democrats are willing to go to lengths to fight for their cause, and not that conservatives don't, but we could do a better job fighting and really standing up against these true injustices. And Democrats do a really good job fighting tooth and nail for their candidates in elections, and they do it in, I mean, honestly, mostly nefarious ways. Not to say that conservatives should do that at all, but we do need to be a little bit more bolder in our action, and it's like more like we're a little bit more. And this is not a bad thing, but a little bit like kinder to people or to the general cause or more respectful. And I think that what we could do is we need to fight as hard as they do, or at least beat them at their own game because they're fighting a different game than we're fighting. And that's how they're able to, squash different things about what's happening within their side and ours just kind of goes by the wayside. And, people will even in the conservative movement, I've noticed, will even be fairly quick to sort of turn on their own. I don't want to put out a blanket statement to say that everybody does that because that's not the case. But there's a lot of people that even turned on our cause after this happened, and that's exactly what the left wants people to think and feels like. Then that's another victory for the left, and we have to be a little bit more, bold and strong in our response and in our own defense to stand up against their fight.
Well, because they villainized "We Build the Wall," and
Hmm.
that was the farthest thing from the truth.
Yeah,
Uh, we did exactly what we set out to do.
right.
This was not this was a victimless crime that the Southern District of New York just decided to take upon itself, and I really honestly think that they knew there was millions of dollars in the coffers, and it was a good thing to go after to be able to siphon
Well,
that money.
and a database of donors too that they took. That
Yes,
they
yes,
that they could do who knows with. So that's an
right,
important thing too, is they took the money and they took your information.
right,
We didn't like just give them the information like, hey, you guys should have this. They had to
right.
take it in their seizure.
So they could be keeping an eye on them, watching them,
Yeah.
deciding that if they make a wrong move, that, okay, now's the time to pounce on this person who donated to We Built the Wall back in 2019.
And there's no saying I have no idea what they're doing with it, but I'm just saying that they have it, and there's no telling what they could do with that.
Right. Well,
So,
and with the We Build the or with Black Lives Matter, there were victims in that
mhm.
whole situation. And it's amazing um, how the Democrats operate. And like you were saying, so let me just go back to, okay, in Arizona, this is kind of off subject, but in Arizona, they had what they ended up calling the tamale bill. And
Mhm.
it was allowing women to make food out of their homes, to have food handler licenses, and be able to take it out on the streets and sell it. Like at Christmas, a lot of the Hispanic women sell tamales here in the Valley, extra income for their family that they count on, for the extra expenditures at Christmas time that come up with buying gifts for everybody. And but they have these small little businesses, and so they had a bill go through, and it passed, and it went to Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs' desk, and she vetoed it. And so it came back to the legislation here, and the Republicans decided that we're gonna override the veto, and we're gonna take a vote. We're gonna push this through no matter what she says, because this is hurting too many people.
Mhm.
And our Democratic representation here in my district, they had voted for the bill, But when the Democratic governor vetoed it and it came back for a revote, they were given their marching orders and told you better vote against it. Why didn't you vote the same way you did on the bill when it passed?
Right, and people are not aware of it. They need to see that the people that
Right.
they're putting in office are not following through on their promises, and that's
But
the
my point is, because Democrats voters, Democrat legislators are giving their marching or they're given their marching orders, and by dawn they better follow their marching orders, because the Democratic Party is such a huge money machine that they know they will not be supported financially by the Democratic Party if they don't step in line with what they're told to do. And that is completely opposite of how the Republican Party works, which I don't think that it needs to be a dictatorship in sort, and you frightened and threatened, that you better vote the way that we tell you to vote. That isn't what being a legislator in a free country is about. But as Republicans, we really need to come together better in supporting and
Yes.
and being there and voting the way that we need to vote to get the conservative bills and legislation passed, because that's why we were voted into office.
Correct.
You know,
I couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly what needs to happen. It's like, let's not, like you said, don't intimidate like they do, because that's just negative anyway. But just, yeah, rally like a united front of support, like a physical wall of human beings of support. We're going to support our candidates in causes the same way the Democrats do, who but with a more genuine resource behind it, that we're like genuine meaning behind it. I apologize, but just that's exactly like we're doing what we set out to do, and we're going to make the country better by doing that. If we don't come together as a group and a party and a cause, then we'll just dissolve. It's just like an army. Yeah, all the whole army has to work together. You can't have part of it, being like, oh well, not liking what that person said about them yesterday or whatever. It needs to be a complete united front.
well, and why wasn't there more people standing up when they were persecuting We Build the Wall? You
I
know,
think I think I can't say for sure. Everybody has perhaps their own reasons or thoughts behind it, but I mean, it seemed to me that everyone got kind of scared, and they were like, they don't want to be associated with anything that might be in the negative light, and that's a little bit weak-minded, to be honest, because people. I mean, even some people in our own party were like questioning like that if we actually built the wall. And it's like, I can give you the address. I mean, we have video and pictures and artifacts or whatever you want to call it from there. I mean, actual like bills that were paid to build the wall and for the steel and for the dirt removal, all that kind of stuff. Now,
yeah.
you can't say that about a lot of things Democrats do. They say they do a lot of stuff. They say they're going to do a lot of stuff, and they never follow through on those promises. So it's a little bit or quite a bit frustrating when you actually follow through something. Even people within your own party are like, "Oh, we don't want to be associated with that because it makes us nervous, or we don't want to step out of line." It's like, it's not stepping out of line to be supportive of people when you know what the truth is, and that that those things actually that we said that we were going to do, we did.
Well, and it was amazing to see those people who came in support of it when they were invited to the
Hmm.
symposiums and the different things that we had down there,
Yeah.
which I think were very informative to the public, because we were actually sitting on the site with, the wall behind us, and having all of these people come and in 100% support of what we were doing. And then when something like what happened with the Southern District of New York, of course, they sensationalize things to the point that they put out to the media that Steve Bannon stole $1 million from the donors, blah, blah, blah. And, when they start putting out sensationalized headlines like that, of course, people are going to, your natural reflex is to kind of step away from it.
Right. You don't want to
But,
be associated with anything illegal.
right. But the thing is, a lot of those people knew you guys
Hmm.
and knew what you had done. And where is the benefit of the doubt? That is what's lacking in this country. Where's the benefit of the doubt? Where is you're innocent until proven guilty
Hmm.
kind of mentality? That's kind
Exactly.
of blown out the window, because you read a headline and, oh, they're guilty. Read another
Hmm.
headline, oh, they're guilty.
Yeah, but they're also the same people that will speak against mainstream media, but yet they fall victim to it continually. And that is one case right there where they did that. Like, not again, I don't want to generalize the whole because we do have quite a bit of support as well,
Oh, yeah.
even since the fall. But but I think that it needs to be addressed. This part about just people bailing out as fast as they jumped on the train, they'll jump right back off, just because they run scared rather than be like, well, where's your backbone?
Yeah. So two of my
So,
biggest points in all of this is victimless crime lawsuits.
mhm,
Where's the accountability for where millions and millions and millions of dollars go? I want to know what Letitia James's plan is on the $355 million that she's planning to take from Trump, which she ran her campaign on, which she denies now when we all have video and proof. That's all she
right,
was screaming and yelling.
yeah.
But where is she planning to spend that money? Just
Why
like just
will
like
she
the
get a
Carol,
bonus?
yeah, just like the Jean Carroll, you have one court saying Trump didn't rape her, and you have another court saying, um, well, you're going to be fined because for defamation because you're out there saying you didn't rape her. Well, I didn't, you know, and
Right.
she's got this defamation lawsuit of what, $83 million? And then she goes on the talk show circuit the very next day and is telling the hosts of the Views, "Oh, I'll buy you a condo on First Avenue,
Mhm.
overlooking Central Park, and we'll go here and we'll go there." And they're laughing it and hooting it up. This isn't a rape victim.
No.
My God, what rape victim have you ever seen that acts like that?
Yeah, they're usually scared to talk about it, and they also I'm not sure exactly how long she waited to bring the charges against them. I mean, the timing was suspect, of course, just like a lot of these, victims that come out like this are against Trump. But yeah, just that they're so I think it's insulting how blatant they are about what the bragging, like, "Yeah, that's our victory, and you get a handbag, and you get a handbag, and you get a"
Yes.
the whole Oprah thing, and I think that and it should set off alarms to people, but then they go, "Oh, she was just being silly." It's like, there's a little bit of truth in every bit of sarcasm.
Right, and when you look back at different interviews she did, like on CNN with, Anderson Cooper, and
Mhm.
saying that rape is a sexy thing, you know, she's a deranged woman, honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've never seen any sort of, um, judgment or given to somebody, a rape victim, $83 million.
Yeah, that was very, it was yeah, very
Does
much
New York need the money from Trump in order, to pay for all these legal fees for all these other stupid victimless lawsuits that they're going to be bringing forward? I mean, they must have a list. How about how long?
that's
Because
interesting, yeah.
they got a big hole to fill with the amount of money that Mayor Adams is spending there in New York City on the illegals.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, who knows who's next, and that's, tying back to the other message too, is with the victimless crime thing, they'll use anybody, anything as their ploy to get to the end goal of obviously more money in the coffers, but just to dismantle the party. And I think everybody can agree that they're never going to stop with these Trump charges because they want to bankrupt him so that he can never do the only way they can really control him because they already feel like they can't control him and that's their whole issue is that he's like like our cause like a individual who just took matters into his own hand and is like wasn't part of the government forever and is being more effective and powerful because that's the power of private entity and him as a private citizen running and so the only way they can control him is to financially bankrupt him and to and destroy him that way so that because if he doesn't have the money and the funds and obviously reputationally bankrupt him and they're trying their hardest to do it and I do see that there is some backlash or that tactic of the reputation is they've gone to such a degree that seems to be backfiring on them a little bit because like okay enough is enough. I mean this is kind of going too far. Every month it's a new thing, a new charge, new case, new victim that they come out with that they parade out there as this person was hurt by Trump and so forth. So it'll never stop, but until they have him fully bankrupt and that he won't be able to get back into office again from that.
right, and then on the same hand, you look at they're opening the borders, allowing an invasion, and forcing taxpayers to foot a $451 billion bill to take care of all of these illegals. And that's only on a federal level. That's not on a that doesn't take into account state, city, and county charges, or expenditures for illegal aliens coming into our country. But the ultimate goal is to bankrupt the American people too.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we have nothing. How are we going to stand up and fight against a government who has absolutely no problem just picking and choosing an individual because they've stood up and said something, and absolutely decimating their lives?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're decimating, it's not, yeah, the decimation of lives goes is not just the individual that they charge and or imprison. It's their families, it's everyone they're associated with, it's their business that they've had for decades. It's a ripple effect across an entire ocean. And so it's, I don't think that people need to use it as we can't let them win to say that this works. It's going to shut people up. It works because that's what they try to do, is that this just works. And I will be honest, it's taken me 4 years to even say anything about it, because I was terrified, obviously, because my home was raided, and my kids were held at gunpoint and stripped down to their underwear and all sorts of horrific things. And it does make you scared of, like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do next? And you just never know. Everything's so unexpected. But we can't let that win, and that's the whole point of that's what they want to do. So it's power in numbers, I think.
Right. But in the same sense, it's a very scary thought in the United States of America, where we have freedom of speech and a God-given right of freedom of thought. And,
Hmm.
that we've got law enforcement and these terrible, evil people, the Soros, money that goes behind putting these DAs into position, that causes kind of havoc on our communities. But on top of all of that, there's also like your reputation,
Hmm.
and your family's reputation in the community. I know that was affected,
Hmm.
and it's a whole big part of this cancel culture bull crap, that they want to just erase people and make them irrelevant, and make them hated kind of people in their own communities,
Hmm.
where they will further go into isolation, right? And
Yes.
disappear from public life
Right.
because of all the things that have happened when you pull that all together.
Hmm.
Um,
Because some of that reputation you can't ever get back. I mean, once people have an opinion on you, it's not like, or on the cause or the case or anything. You can't it that they just take it, run with it, and then they don't really turn back and don't really, care to give it time. And it's not like, we're gonna spend hours upon hours convincing people who already don't like you, because they believe on something, or they just jump to their own conclusions or judgment about you. And so, sometimes you can't get that back. And that's kind of a bigger loss than anything financial or anything else.
right. Because your integrity and who you are is what
Mhm.
matters in the world, not only in
Yeah.
your friend world, but in the business world.
Mhm.
And, all anybody has to do is put a social media post out, something pretty shitty about you.
Mhm.
And, if people want to believe it, or put a complete fabricated lie out about you, and get it to the right influencer, and get it to the right people, and get it to the right trolls in their basement who will, repost it,
Manipulate it.
repost it. It's pretty amazing, that they've been able to create something like this. And then on top of it, you put AI in, and God only knows what's going to start happening to people and their reputations in our future.
Yeah.
Um, it's a pretty
That's a whole
scary
scary
thought.
thing for sure, because they can fabricate AI has already been shown to fabricate phone calls to people that make it sound like it's you, or, and you manipulate your image or your voice and make you say things and do things that you're not actually doing.
Right. Blackmail you with nude photos, and
Mhm.
threaten to send it to your husband or your family, or the news. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty scary thought of where this could all go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just want to thank you, Amanda, for taking the time
Well,
today,
thank you for
coming
giving me
on
the time.
the podcast. I love you
Yes.
so much.
Love
And,
you too.
I'm always in support of you and Tim, and
Mhm.
Brian, and, all of you who put this together. It was an amazing experience, an amazing time in life. And it was just what I needed at that time in my life, fighting, about my son. But to see that the American people could come together and actually pull something off like that was just amazing, truly amazing. And thank you for doing
Oh,
that. And,
oh,
and
it's Honestly, it was an honor. It was, and to be able to work alongside you and other angel parents who have suffered the worst loss from this catastrophic damage that we have happening at the border. And I think I agree with you. One of the most impressive things to me through the project was seeing truly the power of the American people that are really standing behind, like, coming together for one thing. Not just people in our organization, but just the droves of people that would show up to our events, not just from Texas, not just from New York, but that would come to our events from all over the country. And we still have people today that email or contact in ways that they can to say thank you for doing what we did. And so it's those people don't have a public voice because they're not given that platform or anyone to talk about it. So I do appreciate you bringing attention to this.
Well, and I think that, I was just thinking of something when you were saying all of that. I think that to think that that was 2020, 2019 and 2020, and
Yeah.
look at how bad it is now. You
Yeah,
know, what would people be doing now because of an administration who's doing nothing? I think that a GoFundMe would blow up, and it would just be like, I think that we would have walls to be built for years and years and years to come because that's just how passionate the American people are about a secure border.
absolutely. Maybe we were before our time. I mean, maybe
Yes,
would have been even bigger and more effective now, but that
yes.
doesn't seem to be a possibility anymore.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope
All
you have a
right.
wonderful week, and we'll talk to you
Thank,
soon, sweetie.
thank you.
All
Bye bye.
right. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that ends the show for today, and we will be back tomorrow. And I hope you join us. Hope you enjoyed today's show.